Hello, everybody. My name is Can Çelik. I'm going to talk more on the tooling side of the ICD-11 work. I have been leading the informatics side of the ICD-11 work at the WHO headquarters. With this first slide, I would like to give a more bird's eye overview of what type of tools that we have and where I will focus in this presentation. The first part, the first column, tools for software integration, will be the main focus of this talk. So I will go in much more detail in this part. And here we will talk more about the ICD API and related tools. In the second column, we have tools for end users. Various of them have been already mentioned, the ICD-11 coding tool and browser. I will very briefly touch on them. The third block is the tools that we use for during the development and maintenance of the classification. And they are also mentioned here and there, the translation platform, the proposal system. I will not get into those in this talk, but in tomorrow's session, there will be a little bit more detail on the proposal platform and translation platforms. So this is the ICD-11 browser, have been mentioned a couple of times in the morning session. As you see, this is a tool that allows you to see the classification in multiple languages. It is currently available in 7, and as also mentioned, the Czech version is coming very soon. It's in the pre-release, and hopefully we will have it in the release version early 2024. ICD-11 coding tool is also another important tool. So the biggest use case when we talk about tools for the end users is that you have some diagnostic phrases and you want to convert them to codes. So ICD coding tool is what has been done. The slides are moving without my, I can guide the slide changes if I may. The ICD-11 coding tool is, as I said, it's basically from diagnostic phrases to ICD-11 code conversion is done by that. And I will come later that this tool and also the browser are not only standalone tools that we have in our websites, but they can be integrated into any other software. So this is a very important point. And in fact, Islam already showed in her presentation that in their HIS system, they use the coding tool. So this tool can be used within your system. Therefore, everything we have here, you may benefit directly within your systems. Here again, back to the overview. Now I will go back to the main topic, which is the tools for software integration. And everything related to ICD you may find in the URL below, icd.who.int. So all these tools are linked from that page. So let's start with the ICD API. It provides programmatic access to the classification, which means, of course, we as humans use the browser's coding tools, but other tools can also access the classification and do something with it. And that is done with the API. So API is kind of an opening to other software. They can come and use the classification, get information about the classification, as well as learning more about it or using the functionality within the API. So here are the basic things about our API. It is an HTTP-based REST API, which means the other software accesses our API using HTTP, which is basically what we use when we browse the web, which means it can be used from any programming language or any platform. So it does not need to be written in specific language or using specific. So essentially, pretty much any programming language can benefit from the ICD API. It is multilingual. so everything it provides works in multiple languages. Currently, we have it available in 7 languages, and as long as the language translation is finished, we add it to the release versions. In addition to the 7 languages, we have 20 more languages coming, and I think 4 or 5 of them are pre-release, so very close to the release stage, so they will come as well very soon. And Czech is one of them. We provide multiple versions of the classification. We have mentioned, it has been mentioned several times, ICD-11 is different than ICD-10. It has a foundation layer, which is a more like a terminology or an ontology under the hood, and the classification itself is a subset of it, and the API allows you access both of them, so you may use whichever is needed for that particular use case. And multiple versions of the classification, as mentioned, we started releasing ICD-11 starting from 2018 and having one update every year. All these versions can be accessed from the API. It uses a semantic structure. This is a little bit technical, but it's a W3 standard for encoding linked data. It uses JSON-LD. And within itself, it uses, again, SKOS, Simple Knowledge Organization System, with additions, specific additions for ICD, which means it is much more, it's very suitable for semantic interoperability. The searching is one of the most important features of our API. It uses lots of natural language processing features and also does it in multiple languages. So when you go to the API and look for a phrase, it can give you the related codes, possible correct codes. And we are also going to have an automated coding endpoint in the next coming release so that the API could be used to convert phrases into codes automatically. Currently, it still can be done, but it will be much easier and much better. Here, the post-coordination support. Post-coordination is, again, a very important feature of ICD-11. One could add more detail to the ICD categories or combine multiple information in once, and the API also provides access to this. OpenAPI is also supported, which is basically a very good way of documenting the API. So this is for the software developers. When they actually use the API, they can look at these documents and then write more meaningful code with the help of this. We host our API in our cloud. This is basically, you can think of that it's a software running in the internet that you can access. So it is very performant and it's scalable, which means even though the traffic into our API increases, we can easily increase the number of servers that supports it and then still respond in a very quick manner. In the last 3 months, we didn't have any downtime, so it's also up, and we have multiple servers responding to the request. So even if one of them is down, the others could continue working, and we can always increase this number. Here, the other thing, even though we have this very scalable and performant system, sometimes you may want to have it locally deployed. There might be many reasons, might be the internet or might be other administrative reasons that you want everything locally. It's also possible. One could deploy the full functional API on your servers and use it from there. We support Docker or direct Windows or Linux deployment for these local deployment cases. Now, this is essentially the core building block is the API, But on top of it, as mentioned, we have the coding tool, and we can integrate the coding tool or the browser into your software. And that's what we call embedded classification tools. So it's again, a little bit of technical jargon. It's a JavaScript HTML component, but bottom line, it tells that when you have your software, you can integrate the coding tool or the browser within it. And the way it's structured is like this is seen here. ICD API is the bottom part of the whole thing, and embedded classification tools, the embedded coding tool or embedded browser uses the ICD API, and your software can consume ICD API, or your software can use embedded classification tools, which at the bottom uses API itself. And here the gray nodes just shows that our browser, when we say our browser or our coding tool, are actually just tools, very small tools, which are making benefit of using the embedded coding tool within itself. So yourselves could develop very easily tools like coding tool, or in fact, much better, can integrate your HIS systems into ICD-11 with the help of these tools. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's the end of my presentation.